All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about prohibition and organized crime. So, if you remember, before we went on spring break, we were talking about how two things happened before the United States got into the war. Two major things. One was women were getting the right to vote, and prohibition, the end of alcohol. All right. Now remember, people were really happy saying, oh, yes, all these problems that the United States is having is mainly because of alcohol. So now that we got rid of it, it's illegal, things will be better. This lesson is going to show you how, even though people do things for the right reasons, the repercussions, the after effect sometimes can have a negative impact. And that's what this lesson is about. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at our objectives. We're going to analyze the effects that prohibition had on our country, and we're going to examine the lengths people would go to in order to get alcohol. Okay, so here's your warm-up picture. All right, now I'm sure if you have your phone with you, if you're watching this on your phone, it's kind of hard to see the writing, um, but there are some things you should be able to see. But the things you can't see, I'll put them out for you. Where it says bootleg profits, there's a little bag that says money for bribes to bribe jurors, money to beat the law. There's a paper next to the guy who's standing up, leaning against the barrel. There's a little paper that says pardon. Inside the barrel, there's little tags that says money to hire best lawyers, and last one says money to bribe politicians. Okay, so the first question asks you basically what's going on in this picture. All right. And the second one says, what do you think this artist is trying to say about organized crime? All right. So if you see the guy, the little guy, what it says on his back, what the little cloud of smoke says from the gun, that should really help you out in what this picture's trying to say and what this artist is trying to say. Okay. So pause the video, write your responses, okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So it's one thing to say, okay, the law of the land says no alcohol. Okay, fine. Problem is, how do you enforce it? How do you make sure people are not getting the alcohol and drinking it and things like that or making it? So federal and local governments struggled really hard in the 1920s to actually enforce it. Now, the federal government, when it started, they're like, okay, well, who are we going to put in charge of this? And everyone's like looking around. They don't know which section of the government should handle this. Because you have to remember, this is before the FBI is created, CIA and, things like that. So it's like, okay, who do we give this to? So originally they gave it to the IRS. Now, if you don't know what the IRS is, that's the Internal Revenue Service. These guys are the ones in charge of collecting taxes and things like that. Not really, known for being tough cops type of thing. They're more about bookworms and doing things with accounting and stuff like that. So, they may not be too good with a gun and things like that if it needed to get done. The next group then came was the Justice Department. Hey, Justice Department deals with the law. This is right up that alley, okay. But then later on, the government created the Prohibition Bureau. This is a group that was created specifically to go after people who were making, selling, or transportating alcohol. Now, rules, believe it or not, were more strict in rural towns and small towns. Rural towns are towns like little farm towns, towns that only have like maybe 1,000 people, 2,000 people, little tiny towns all around. So like the examples I gave um, in class was like Early Mart, Pixley, Oildale. Some of you guys never heard of those towns. Okay, but they are here in the Central Valley. They are very small. Um, and usually, when you're driving up the highway on the 99, you'll see like it says Fresno, the next 11 exits. So that means you have 11 exits to get off, and you'll be in Fresno. These places, it's like you only got one. So if you miss it, you got to keep driving, driving, then get off that one and circle around. Or sometimes you have to get off at a certain point and then drive certain miles one way or the other to get to those small towns. Okay. Um, so yeah, the rules were more strict in those places, but in urban areas, cities, New York, Chicago, LA, places like that, um, the laws were looser. They weren't as strict. So it was kind of like, wait, what? You would think it'd be more strict in big cities than it is in little towns, but it's actually reverse. Now that lady you see up on top there, that is a bootlegger. Okay, as you can see in her hands, yes, she has a bottle of, looks kind of looks like whiskey, and yes, she's sticking it in her boot, hence the name bootlegger. A bootlegger was anyone who was either making, transporting, and or selling illegal liquor. So women would again put in their boots sometimes. Sometimes they get like a little strap and they would tie it to their legs, you know. And what they would do is they would fill up the bottle because if it was just even a little bit of air in there, it would make a swish noise, shh, 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 and they might get caught, you know. So they had to be careful, and they had to be careful too not to hit anything because if it busts, that's glass that's breaking, and it might be cutting them, and the alcohol is going to be spilling everywhere. Okay. Now, places that sold illegal alcohol were known as speakeasies. And how you say that word is that the little parentheses? Speak easy with the S at the end, easies. Speakeasies. Okay, and there's a picture of it at the bottom of one of them. What they would do is, let's say that this right here, where my hand is, let's say this is a wall. What some places would do is they would make a wall out here, a fake wall, and they would have somebody on the inside who would see like, okay, is this person cool? Are they an actual person who's going to buy alcohol and things like that? Then what they would do is that fake wall would have like a little doorway or a pathway, some of that, and then that area in between that was like a hallway to go to the attic, to the basement, to another area where the speakeasies would be, and people could drink, relax, listen to music, things like that. You know, now how sophisticated were these places? One was just discovered like last year um, in New York. Some of these people they people thought, oh, this is how small the room is. In reality, no, there was a fake wall right there, and you go down that little path, and you can go up to a basement, another building, to the cellar, and there's a little bar area. Okay, now some people they didn't want to do that, all that stuff, go through all that trouble and things like that. So some people actually made their own liquor, made their own beer. They made it at home, but the thing is, they kept it a secret. Like I told people in class, nowadays, if alcohol was illegal, people would still be taking their phones, and be like, "Oh yeah, look what I got, and I'm making this and that." Your generation don't know how to keep a secret, okay? But older generations, they could and they did, and in a sense, they kind of had to. Because think of it like this: if in the neighborhood there's an alcoholic, let's just say there's one. Chances are there's more, but let's just say there's just one, and they know somebody is making alcohol at this one house. They might try to rob them. They might try to blackmail them. Like, hey, if you don't give me liquor, you don't give me some of that beer or liquor, whatever you're making, I'm going to tell the cops you're making stuff there. So there was they had to keep it a secret if they were going to make alcohol and liquor at in their homes. Okay. Now, with the illegal sale of liquor, Then came the rise of mafias and crime syndicates. Yeah. So if you've ever heard of the mafia, you're going to find out how they got so big. All right, so here's your first question. Why do you think the authorities were more strict on small towns and small communities and not in big cities? Okay, so think about it. Think of like Fresno and think of like LA. What's the difference between like Fresno and LA? Think about people, where, the size, things like that. What are the difference between them two, and how does that play a role with the authorities enforcing the law? Okay, so think about it, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple of these guys from the mafia. The first one I have to talk about is that guy right there. That is Charles Lucky Luciano. Okay, now if it kind of looks like his eyes kind of like droopy a little bit, and like it is, he's not faking it. That's really how his eye was. Um, he started off as a gunman. Okay, but later on, when Prohibition started, if you've ever watched The Godfather, you saw like the five families and things like that. That was really true. There were different mafia groups, mafia families, and they were fighting each other for territory and things like that. And what this guy did is basically gather them and said, you know what, guys, we do not profit if we're all trying to kill each other. We're all trying to take territories. We're all trying to, outdo one another. If we work together, we can accomplish so much more. Let's say this family is in trouble, right, with the law. Um, this family might know judges, might control judges, so they could say, "Hey, judge, help these guys out," and then that family can then get something in return, whether it's money, a favor, something. Help each other out so that we all profit, we all do well, and things like that. And it worked. So if you ever watch The Godfather, one of my favorite movies of all time, and there's a part with Don Corleone going, "My son, if something should happen to him, lightning should strike him. I'm gonna come after one of you guys." You know, that's basically some kind of stuff they did back then. They had talks about stuff like that, whether it's about taxes, people pushing into their territory, things like that. If there was some kind of dispute, they would talk about it. And this guy was the ringleader. Okay. The next guy is Bugs Moran. Now, Bugs was a rival to this other guy we're going to be talking about in a little bit called Al Capone. And you're going to find out what happens to Bugs in the next slide. All right. The next guy on the list, his name was Dutch Schultz. His birth name was Arthur Flangenheimer. And he basically changed it to Dutch Schultz because it sounded more intimidating than Arthur Flangenheimer. Dutch Schultz started off as a bootlegger, but then later on, he got control of distribution of liquor, things like that. But later on, when he got to the Great Depression, he got into the running illegal gambling. It was called the lottery racket. He got into that. The next guy kind of threw a little curveball. Okay, because again, back in the day, people heard mafia, they think Italian. All these guys are Italian. All those mobster guys are Italian. Meyer Lansky wasn't Italian. He was actually Jewish. And it kind of threw a curveball. Kind of, like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, Meyer Lansky was a very, very smart man, you know, and he was a Jewish man. He started off doing burglaries. He was a liquor smuggler. He could transport it from area to areas. And he did other rackets. The thing with Meyer Lansky, though, that really got him notoriety was he created a group of hitmen who were they're basically hitmen for hire, and they were known as Murder Inc. So when a mafia boss wanted somebody killed, they would go to Luciano and then say like, "Well, who's this person? Oh, it's a nobody. Okay, fine, go ahead." But if it was one of another mafioso person, they would have to get an approval. But they would have to go through Meyer Lansky to hire that hitman. Okay, so yeah, he was the oddball in the group, but again, he was a very smart man. Okay, the next guy, Bugsy Siegel. Some of you guys, if you're big fans of like Snoop Dogg, things like that, he has made songs where he talks about Bugsy Siegel, doing it all legal, things like that. Um, Bugsy Siegel was a bootlegger. He was an assassin too. But what really made him famous was when he moved to Hollywood. And Hollywood really they had a love affair too with gangsters. They loved gangster movies and things like that. So movies like Public Enemy, which has James Cagney, which, I mean, if you ever get to watch the movie, it's black and white, but that shouldn't disturb you. That movie is amazing. James Cagney is so amazing in that movie. Um, if you watch Scarface with Al Pacino, you know, all I got in this world is my word, and this is not, and I don't break them for no one. Okay, that movie is actually a remake. There was an original Scarface from 19, I believe it's 31 or 1932, um, with Paul Mooney. Again, Hollywood liked the gangsters. They liked the people like that because of Bugsy Siegel. Later on, Bugsy Siegel would help create the Flamingo Casino in Vegas, and basically with his help, he made Vegas what it is today. He and the Mafia, but still, he helped create that. Okay. Now, one of the greatest examples of people taking advantage of the Prohibition era is Alphonse Capone, aka Al Capone, aka Scarface. Right? During the Prohibition time, in our money today, he made about $60 million a year off bootlegging and speakeasies. $60 million. Okay. Now, here's the thing: the amount of money that was being brought in really raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people are like, well, hey, this stuff is being sold in my neighborhood. We should start a gang and take over this territory because this is our home. We know this area. This is ours. And little gangs started popping up, and the gangs got bigger, and they would fight other gangs, and they would fight the mafia. So the violence started erupting really big, especially in Chicago. And like I told you guys about that guy Bugs Marone, what Al Capone did is he had some of his men dress up as police officers and basically quote unquote, arrest Bugs Marone's men, line them up like they're going to frisk them, check them for weapons, and they ended up murdering them, gunned them down with Tommy guns. As you see in that little paper right there, the newspaper Massacre of Seven. Um, this became known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929. And this is where some people started to realize, like, this is getting out of hand. All this murder, all this stuff that's happening, the violence is like really, really growing, and it's all because of the alcohol. So, due to the rise of violence, the prices of alcohol was going up too. Now, I had a student in class go, well, why couldn't they do anything about it? Because you have to remember, alcohol is illegal. It's not like they can go to the government and say, hey, we're being price gouged on the alcohol. Well, it's illegal. You shouldn't be buying it anyway. You know. So the gangs, because it's illegal, they could raise the price of beer or liquor or whatever, however high they want it. Because they know people want it, that people are going to buy it, so they can raise the price as much as they like. And because of that too, there's more money. More money, people want in on it. So now more gangs are being formed. The number of arrests skyrocketed. People like Al Capone would pay cops, arrest my rival. they hang out at this area, arrest these guys, you know. So the number of arrests skyrocketed. The number of jails and prisons needed to put all these guys in. Hey, we need to start building all this stuff, things like that, because the prisons got crowded. So some people started realizing, man, this is getting bad. This is getting horrible. So the support for prohibition started to really go down, and people started feeling a different way about prohibition. And then things got worse. The Great Depression happened. The Great Depression we'll be talking about next class. Okay, but the thing is, whenever you buy something at a store, let's say it's for 99 cents, do you ever get it for 99 cents? No, right? It's usually like $1.16 or whatever. Well, that extra money, that's taxes. That's taxes are also put on alcohol. So the government would get money if they had taxes on alcohol, but because now alcohol is illegal, um, the government can't get that money. All that money is going straight to the mafia people. So the government is losing out on millions and millions of dollars that they could use when the world is hurting and the country is hurting and they need money. All right, so here's your next question. Do you think that if the prohibition had never happened, if alcohol was never illegal, do you think the mafia would be as big as they were? What do you think? Do you think that the mafia would even have been as big as they were? Do you think it even would have started? What do you think? So if you say yes, I think the if it wasn't for prohibition, the mafia never would have happened, or they never would have been as big. Explain why. If you say no, no, the mafia would have found ways to make money. They still would have been as big, maybe not as fast, but they still would have found a way. Explain why you feel that way. Okay. So pause the video, write your response, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So the election of 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt, which is the guy on the bottom, he ran on a platform of repealing prohibition, basically getting rid of it. Herbert Hoover, the other guy on top there, was like, no, 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 we need to keep prohibition. Um, life, when alcohol people were drinking alcohol, has made things worse. It's so horrible. And people were like, yeah, no, we need to get rid of this guy Hoover because he was blamed for the Great Depression. So a lot of people were like, yeah, no, we need new leadership. Get rid of Hoover. Let's go with FDR. FDR sworn in as president in January 1932, and in February 1930, January 1933, and in February 1933, basically Congress adopts the 21st Amendment, which repeals the 18th Amendment. The word repeal basically means to like erase, go over type of stuff. So these are the only two amendments that cancel each other out. The 18th says alcohol is illegal. The 21st Amendment says, okay, in the 18th Amendment, we're going to scratch that. That's no longer the law of the land. So now alcohol is legal again. All right, that's what the 21st Amendment says. By the end of the year, so within 10 months, 75% of the states in the United States vote for the end of prohibition. They only need 66%, but they got 75. Okay. Some states continue to ban alcohol, right, after the prohibition. That's within their rights. They can do that. That's still to this day. Some places in our country are dry counties, meaning that they don't sell alcohol in that area. So let's say like in Fresno, it's a dry county. That means you can't buy alcohol in that whole county. But if you come down to where I live here in Tulare County, um, you could buy alcohol because we would be a regular county. You know, so as long as you live in that county, if it's a dry county, there's no selling of alcohol. But if you came to another county, you could. Okay. Now, officially, quote unquote, officially, the prohibition officially was abandoned in 1966, meaning it ended officially in 1966. Okay. So here's my next question to you. Do you think it was worth all that trouble, all that chaos, all that murder to make alcohol illegal for only 15 years? What do you think? Do you think it was worth it to try and do a good thing, try to get rid of this evil in our country, and all it took was the mafia being born and becoming a juggernaut, um, countless people being killed, you know, countless people being in jail, um, the rise of gangs, things like that, the corruption, the rise of corruption and police officers and politicians, and you know, do you think it was worth it? So there's a writing prompt on the bottom there. I do or don't think making alcohol illegal for 15 years was worth all the trouble because, and explain. Tell me what you think. Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So now we've come to your exit ticket. The question asks you, which of these problems do you think really brought the end of prohibition? Which one of these things do you think really made people go, oh man, this prohibition stuff sucks and we need to end it now? Do you think it was the rise of violence? Do you think it was the rise of alcohol, the price that people were like, it's gone too high, it's ridiculous, no one's going to pay for this high price for a little bottle of liquor? Do you think it was the number of gangs being risen? Do you think it was the number of arrests that were made? Or do you think it was that, hey, we have so many people being arrested, now we have to put a jail here, here, here? And no, that's horrible, that's wrong. So which one of those things do you think really helped bring the end of prohibition? Okay, so the writing prompts on the bottom, I think that, and you can fill in the blank with one of those things, really brought the end of prohibition because, and explain why you believe that. Okay. Once you finish with this exit ticket, you are done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Um, Again, a lot of students in class seem to have liked it. I try to bring the same energy and stuff like that, but again, this is the end of the day. It's like like over past 9 o'clock. So I'm tired, guys. So I'm sorry if I didn't make it seem like I'm as energetic. All right, I'm just tired. So with that being said, you guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.